I was standing at the kitchen counter, still in my gardening gloves, dirt under my fingernails, when the doorbell rang. I hadn't been expecting anything. My husband had kissed me goodbye that morning, his hand warm on my shoulder, and said he'd be back in 3 days. Conference season, he called it. The sales manager's annual pilgrimage to hotels with bad coffee and PowerPoint presentations. He'd done it for years. I opened the door to find a delivery driver holding a small box. The kind jewelry comes in, Tiffany blue, with that white ribbon. "Linda Morrison?" he asked. "Yes. Sign here, please." I signed, my gloves leaving a faint smudge of potting soil on the screen. The driver handed me the box and left. I stood there in the doorway, the afternoon sun warm on my face, staring at the label. The address was correct, our address, but the name wasn't. Amanda Reese. I'd never heard that name before. Not once in 32 years. I carried the box inside and set it on the kitchen table, next to the vase of roses I'd cut that morning. Our anniversary was in 3 days. 32 years. I'd been planning a quiet dinner, just the two of us. I'd already bought his favorite wine. I looked at the box again. Amanda Reese. Maybe it was a mistake. The driver had probably mixed up addresses. I should call the company, have them pick it up, but I didn't. Instead, I sat down at the table and opened it. Inside was a bracelet, white gold, delicate, expensive. The kind of thing my husband had given me once, 20 years ago, when his commissions were good and we'd just paid off the mortgage. There was a card tucked inside, small and cream-colored. For A. Can't wait to see you. R. Robert. My husband. I sat very still. The refrigerator hummed. The clock over the sink ticked. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Chen's wind chimes. I read the card again. For A. Can't wait to see you. I placed the bracelet back in the box, closed the lid, and sat there for what felt like a long time. My hands were shaking. I took off my gardening gloves, one finger at a time, very slowly, and folded them neatly on the table. Then I stood up and walked to my husband's study. He kept everything organized. File folders, color-coded, documents labeled, bank statements in chronological order. He'd always been meticulous about money. 30 years as a sales manager, and he still balanced the checkbook by hand every month. It was something I'd loved about him. That precision, that care. I opened the filing cabinet. Current bills, utilities, insurance, taxes. And then I found the folder that wasn't labeled. Inside were credit card statements. Not our usual ones. A different card. A different account. I'd never seen these before. I sat down at his desk and started reading. Hotels, not the conference centers he'd told me about. Small boutique hotels downtown. 4-star places with names like the Windsor and the Bellwether. Multiple stays, weeknight stays, restaurants. Places I'd never been. Italian places, steakhouses, that new French bistro everyone said was too expensive. Jewelry, Tiffany's, multiple purchases, different amounts, different dates. And then the amount at the bottom of the page, $18,000. Just on this card. Just in the last 6 months. I went back through the statements. January, February, March. Every month, charges I didn't recognize, places I'd never been, things I'd never seen. I thought about our joint account, the one we used for everything, groceries, utilities, my small retirement pension from teaching. I'd retired 2 years ago, after 30 years in the classroom. We'd celebrated with a weekend at the lake. He'd said we were comfortable. Not rich, but comfortable. No need to worry. I thought about the refinancing papers he'd brought home last year. Something about interest rates, he'd said. Better terms. I'd signed where he'd pointed. I trusted him. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. My legs felt strange, like they weren't quite connected to my body. In the closet, in the box where I kept important documents, I found our mortgage papers. We'd owned the house outright for 15 years. Paid it off when I was 43. We'd thrown a party. Our daughter had made a cake that said free and clear in blue icing. But according to these papers, dated last October, we'd taken out a second mortgage, $180,000. I sat on the edge of the bed, the papers in my lap. The signature at the bottom looked like mine, the loops of the L, the way I crossed my T's. But I didn't remember signing this. I would have remembered this, unless I hadn't signed it at all. The room was very quiet. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and fast. I looked at our wedding photo on the dresser. Me in my mother's dress, him in a rented tux, both of us so young. 26 and 28. My whole life ahead of me. Our whole life. I picked up my phone and dialed his company's main line. Henderson Sales Group. How may I direct your call? Hi. Yes. I'm trying to reach someone about the regional conference this week. My husband is attending and I need to get a message to him. Of course. Which conference is that? The sales managers conference. The one in Chicago. There was a pause. Ma'am, we don't have any conferences scheduled this week. Are you sure? The regional one? My husband said. We had our regional meeting last month, ma'am, in Street Louis. There's nothing on the calendar until November. Oh, I said. I must have gotten my dates mixed up. Thank you. I hung up. He wasn't at a conference. He'd never been at a conference. I went back to the kitchen and looked at the box on the table. The Tiffany box. For A. Amanda Reese. I opened my laptop and searched the name. Nothing on Facebook, nothing on LinkedIn. I tried different spellings. Amanda Reese, Amanda Ressi. Still nothing. Then I tried Robert's name with Amanda's. And there it was. A tagged photo from 3 months ago. Someone's birthday party at a bar downtown. My husband, smiling, his arm around a young woman with dark hair and red lipstick. The caption said, "Best team ever." 7 people in the photo. All co-workers, probably, including Amanda Reese. She looked young, early 30s maybe. She was wearing a black dress and laughing at something someone off camera had said. My husband's hand was on her waist. I closed the laptop. The afternoon sun had shifted. The kitchen was dimmer now, the shadows longer. I realized I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I wasn't hungry. I called my daughter instead. Mom. Hi, I was just thinking about you. Sarah, my baby. 30 years old now, working as a physical therapist 2 states away. Married last year to a kind man who made her laugh. Hi, sweetheart. You okay? You sound funny. I'm fine. I wanted to hear your voice. Well, that's sweet. What's up? I almost told her. The words were right there, pressing against my throat. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure first. I needed to understand. Nothing, really. Just wanted to say hi. How's work? We talked for 10 minutes. She told me about a patient who just learned to walk again after a car accident, about her husband's new job, about the house they were hoping to buy, normal things, life things. When we hung up, I felt hollow. I went back to the study and kept looking. I found another credit card statement, another hidden account, this one with bar tabs, Uber rides, hotel rooms, $22,000. I found bank statements for an account I'd never seen, regular transfers, $2,000 a month, every month, for the last 2 years. Going out to somewhere called Mountain View Property Management. I Googled the name. It was a company that managed rental apartments downtown. My husband had a secret apartment. I sat at his desk, surrounded by paper, surrounded by evidence, and I tried to remember the last time he'd looked at me the way he looked at that woman in the photo. The last time he'd touched my face, kissed me like he meant it, told me I was beautiful. I couldn't remember. How long had I been invisible? The house was very quiet. I could hear the ice maker in the freezer, the way it dropped cubes into the bin every few hours. I'd lived with that sound for 23 years, since we'd bought this refrigerator. I thought about calling him, right then, demanding answers, but I didn't. Instead, I took photos of everything, every statement, every receipt, every document. I sent them to my email. Then I put everything back exactly where I'd found it. I had 3 days before he came home. 3 days to decide what to do. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in our bed, on my side, staring at his empty pillow. He always slept on the right side. 32 years, same side. I used to joke that if we ever got a different bed, we'd probably forget which side was ours. I thought about Amanda Reese, wondered what she was like. If she knew about me, if she wore the bracelet, if she believed him when he said he loved her. If he did love her, I thought about the money. $180,000. Where had it gone? The apartment couldn't cost that much. Even with the credit cards, the hotels, the jewelry, there should have been more. I got up at 3 a.m. and went back to the study. Searched deeper. Found another folder, hidden behind the old tax returns. Gambling debts, casino receipts, online poker accounts, sports betting apps, losses documented in neat columns, in his precise handwriting. Dates, amounts, sites. $60,000. Just in the last year, I sat on the floor of his study, my back against the desk, and I finally let myself cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears running down my face, quiet and steady, while the house creaked around me and the moon moved across the sky outside the window. I'd been a good wife, a good mother. I'd taught middle school English for 30 years, shaped young minds, helped kids learn to love books. I'd made dinners, packed lunches, attended school plays and soccer games and parent-teacher conferences. I'd held his hand through his father's death, through the year he'd lost his job, through every hard thing, and he'd been living another life. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, I got up, washed my face, and made coffee. It was 4:30 in the morning. By the time the sun came up, I'd called an attorney. Her name was Patricia Chen, Mrs. Chen's daughter, the one who'd gone to law school. I'd taught her in 8th grade. She'd been a quiet kid, always reading ahead in the textbook. "Linda," she said when I explained why I was calling, "I'm so sorry. Can I make an appointment? Come in today, 11 o'clock. And Linda, don't tell him you know. Not yet. I won't. Bring everything you found. Photos, documents, everything. I have it all." At Patricia's office, I laid out everything on her conference table. She read through it slowly, making notes, her face professionally neutral. "Okay," she said finally. "This is actually more clear-cut than a lot of cases I see." Clear-cut? The signature on the mortgage documents? That's fraud. If he forged your signature, that's a crime. We can get the mortgage reversed. You won't lose the house. Something loosened in my chest. I won't? No, the house is yours. But Linda, we need to move fast, before he has a chance to move more money around. What do I do? Go home. Act normal. When he gets back, we'll have papers ready. I'll coordinate with a colleague who specializes in fraud cases. We'll file for divorce and report the forgery to the police simultaneously. The police? He committed fraud. Forged your signature on a legal document. That's not just a divorce issue. That's criminal. I nodded slowly. I'd never thought about my husband as a criminal before. I'd thought about him as the man who made me laugh, who held my hand during scary movies, who cried when our daughter was born. "What about the affair?" I asked. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, so the affair itself won't affect the settlement much. But the financial fraud will. The gambling, the hidden accounts, the forged signature, that all works in your favor. How long will this take? 4 to 6 months, probably. Maybe longer if he contests it. 4 to 6 months. Half a year of my life, unraveling 32 years. "Okay," I said. "Linda." Patricia looked at me across the table. "Are you all right? Do you have someone to talk to?" "My daughter." "Call her. Today. You're going to need support." I called Sarah from the parking lot. "Mom? Twice in 2 days? What's wrong?" This time, I told her everything. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, very softly, I'm coming home. Sarah, you don't have to. Mom, I'm coming home. I'll be there tomorrow. After we hung up, I sat in my car and watched people walk by. Normal people living normal lives. Going to lunch, running errands, talking on their phones. And I wondered how many of them were hiding secrets like my husband. How many of them had whole other lives their families knew nothing about. I went home and made dinner. Chicken, the way I always made it. Roasted with rosemary. I set the table for one and ate slowly, tasting nothing. The next day, Sarah arrived. She hugged me in the doorway for a long time, neither of us speaking. Then she came inside, and I showed her everything. Jesus, Mom, she said, looking at the mortgage papers. He forged your signature. I know. That's actually crazy. Like, actually illegal. I know. And you had no idea about any of it? No, she shook her head. I can't believe Dad would do this. Neither could I. That was the thing. Even now, with all the evidence spread out on my kitchen table, part of me still expected him to walk through the door and explain it all away. Some reasonable explanation I hadn't thought of. Some mistake. But I knew there wasn't one. That night, Sarah and I ordered pizza and sat on the couch, not really watching the TV, just sitting together. Mom, she said finally, what are you going to do? What do you mean? After all this is over, what are you going to do? I looked at her. My daughter. My beautiful, smart, kind daughter. I don't know, I said honestly. I retired 2 years ago. I was looking forward to traveling with your father, maybe volunteering. I thought we'd have time now, you know, time to do all the things we'd put off. You still can, just not with him. It's not the same. No, she agreed. It's not. But Mom, you're 58. You could have another 30 years, 40 years even. You can't spend all of it being sad about what Dad did. She was right. I knew she was right, but I couldn't quite imagine it yet, what that life would look like. Me, alone, starting over at 58. My husband came home on Thursday, right on schedule. I heard his car in the driveway, heard the door open, heard him call out, "I'm home." Sarah was upstairs in her old room. We'd agreed she'd stay out of sight. I met him in the kitchen. He looked tired, his tie loosened, his jacket over his arm. "Hey," he said, smiling. He kissed my cheek. "How was your week?" "Fine," I said. "How was the conference?" "Long. Boring presentations, bad hotel coffee. You know how it is." I nodded. "Did you want dinner?" "I made chicken." "That sounds great. Let me just shower first." He went upstairs. I heard the water running. I stood in the kitchen, my hands gripping the edge of the counter, breathing slowly. When he came back down, I'd set the table. 2 plates, chicken, rice, salad, a normal dinner, our 32-year dinner. We ate quietly. He talked about work, about people I'd never heard of, about sales numbers and quarterly projections. I listened and nodded and cut my chicken into small pieces. "Oh," he said, reaching for his wine glass. "I forgot to mention, our anniversary's this weekend." "I know. Should we do something? Maybe that Italian place you like?" "Sure," I said. We wouldn't make it to Saturday. By Saturday, he'd be served with papers. By Saturday, he'd know I knew, but I didn't tell him that. Not yet. That night, we lay in bed together, the same way we'd done for 32 years. He fell asleep quickly, the way he always did. I lay awake, listening to him breathe, and I thought about the woman in the photo, Amanda Reese. I wondered if she knew he was here, in this bed, with his wife. If she cared, I wondered if he thought about her while he lay next to me. In the morning, I was up before him. I made coffee, the way I always did. When he came downstairs, I handed him his mug, and he kissed my forehead. "You're the best," he said. I didn't answer. At 9 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Patricia had sent a process server, someone I didn't know. A young woman with kind eyes who apologized as she handed him the papers. "Robert Morrison?" "Yes?" You've been served. He took the papers, confused, looked at them, then at me. Linda? I stood by the kitchen counter, my arms crossed. Sarah came downstairs and stood next to me. He looked at the papers again. Divorce petition. Fraud charges. Police report number. What is this? I know, I said quietly. About Amanda. About the apartment. About the gambling. About the money. His face went white. Linda, I know you forged my signature on the mortgage papers. I can explain. I don't want you to. He looked at Sarah. Did you know about this? Don't talk to her, I said. Talk to me. He put the papers down on the counter. His hands were shaking. Linda, please. It's not what you think. What is it then? I made mistakes. I know I did. But I love you. I've always loved you. When did it start? He closed his eyes. 2 years ago. The affair, the gambling was longer. 2 years. While I was retiring. While I was planning our future. Does she know about me? Yes. Does she know you're married? He hesitated. No. You lied to her too. I didn't mean. The mortgage. Did you forge my signature? Silence. Did you? Yes. His voice was barely a whisper. I needed the money. The debts were. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. $180,000. I know. Where is it? Gone. He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Shame. Real, deep shame. I'm sorry. Linda, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. I'll get help. I'll fix this. You can't. Please. You need to leave, I said. This is my house too. No, it's not. Read the papers. Restraining order. You have 24 hours to get your things. He stared at me. You can't do this. I already did. He looked at Sarah again. Are you really going to let your mother do this? Sarah's voice was cold. Let her? Dad, she's not doing anything. You did this. He stood there for a moment longer. Then he picked up the papers and walked upstairs. We heard him moving around, opening drawers, packing. He came down 30 minutes later with 2 suitcases, stopped at the door. I never wanted to hurt you, he said. But you did, I replied. He left. The house was very quiet after that. Sarah made tea. We sat at the kitchen table, not speaking, just sitting together while the afternoon sun moved across the floor. You okay? She asked finally. I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me in a year. The divorce took 5 months. He didn't contest it. He couldn't. The evidence was overwhelming. The forged signature, the hidden accounts, the affair. Patricia said it was one of the most clear-cut cases she'd ever handled. I kept the house. He was prosecuted for fraud, given probation and community service. He had to pay restitution for the forged mortgage. His company fired him when the charges became public. I heard through mutual friends that the affair ended. Amanda Reese, when she found out he was married, wanted nothing to do with him. He moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. I didn't know where, exactly, and I didn't ask. Sarah stayed with me for 3 weeks after that first day. Then she had to go back to her life, her job, her husband. But she called every day. She still does. I started going to a support group for women going through divorce. There were 7 of us, meeting every Tuesday night in the basement of a church downtown. We drank bad coffee and ate store-bought cookies and talked about our lives. One woman, Janet, had been married 40 years. Another, Michelle, had 3 kids under 10. We were all different ages, different backgrounds, different stories. But we all understood each other in a way our friends who'd never been through it couldn't. I learned I wasn't alone. That betrayal happens to all kinds of people, in all kinds of marriages. That it wasn't my fault. That I could survive it. Slowly, very slowly, I started to feel like myself again. I went back to the garden. I'd neglected it for months, too lost in grief and anger to care. But one morning in early spring, I woke up and saw the weeds had taken over my roses, so I put on my gloves and went outside. It felt good, having my hands in the dirt, pulling weeds, pruning dead branches, planting new seeds, making something grow again. I joined a book club, started volunteering at the library, helping kids with reading. Some of them remembered me from when I'd been their teacher. I took a trip to visit Sarah, spent a week in her house, helping her paint the guest room of the new place she'd bought. She was happy, really happy, and that made me happy too. On what would have been my 33rd anniversary, I drove out to the lake by myself. The same lake where we'd celebrated after I retired. I sat on a bench, watching the water, and I thought about all the years we'd had, the good ones and the bad ones. I thought about the young woman I'd been, 26 years old in my mother's wedding dress, how she'd believed in forever, how she'd thought love was enough. I thought about the woman I was, now 59 years old, starting over. And I realized something. I was still here. He'd lied to me, betrayed me, stolen from me. He'd taken years of my life I couldn't get back. He'd broken promises I'd thought were sacred, but he hadn't broken me. I was still here, still standing, still able to feel joy, to love my daughter, to make things grow. And that, I thought, watching the sun set over the water, was something that was enough. I drove home as the stars came out, made myself dinner, called Sarah. We talked for an hour, about nothing important, just life. Before bed, I looked at myself in the mirror, really looked, not the way I used to, searching for signs of aging, for things that needed fixing. Just looked at my face, the lines around my eyes, the gray in my hair, the woman I'd become. "You're going to be okay," I told her, and I meant it.